All right, this is the Perego 12-volt John Deere ground loader, which I got for my son for his birthday, so of course he can drive a tractor just like Daddy. I bought this on Amazon, and some of the reviews mentioned that it was kind of a pain to assemble and that the directions weren't that good, so I figured I would make a video of the assembly process, and hopefully that will help some people who are putting this thing together in the future. So let's open it up and get started. All right, here's what you get when you open the box. We have, thankfully the main body is already assembled with the axles and wheels on and everything. I was worried I was gonna have to do all that. You have the seat, which is actually a nice hard plastic with little armrest thingies. You got the front loader and then the hood. And this is the part that's probably gonna be a pain to assemble. We have a whole box of accessories and other parts here. These look like the arms for the loader in the front. We have, I don't know if this is like a roll bar, steering wheel, and a smaller, not quite sure what this is, and a whole bag of tiny parts, so that's probably going to be the really fun part. A battery charger. And finally we have the instructions. So let's take up, and there's a metal bar in there, and that's probably important, and make sure we don't lose that. All right, so let's crack open the instructions and look at what we got. All right, so right off the bat, I can see the format of these instructions is not great, and people on the internet probably had a valid complaint here. There are big pictures, and then there's a ton of massive caution and warning print that I was just ignoring at first because it just looked like a whole bunch of safety warnings, but the actual instructions are down here in much smaller fonts, so that the cautions are huge, and then there's actual written instructions that match up to the diagrams over here. So I'm just going to go through this step by step. I'll show you the steps in the written instructions and then the corresponding step on the actual assembly. So number one here, place the green counterweight on the front of the tractor chassis. The hollow pegs on the chassis should pass through the holes in the counterweight. Secure the lower part of the counterweight by hooking the C-shaped tabs under the chassis. So looking at the picture and matching up the parts, looks like this thing is the counterweight. And I'm going to zoom out, and these holes in the counterweight should hook over these kind of pegs on the chassis. And there are hooks, it looks like there, that should hook under the chassis. So I might need to grab my tripod or just put my phone down to do this with two hands, but it looks like, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do this without breaking the plastic. Slide this over there. Slide these over those pegs. Okay, I'm gonna need two hands for that, so let me grab my tripod. Okay, let's try that again now that I've got two hands. So place the green counterweight on the front of the tractor. Hollow pegs should pass through the holes. Just going to do this without breaking it, because it feels like it's going to break. Oh, that's already kind of a pain. Let's see, I can get these over there. So slide it on. There we go. So sliding on from the front as opposed to trying to get it down from the top first, and bend these green tabs up and push, and there, and that sounded like it broke, but I don't think it did. There we go. Okay, that made me nervous. Felt like it was going to break sliding it on there, but slide that. Again, this is the front counterweight. Slide it on from the front and snap over those two pegs there. Got it on the tripod here. Next step in the instructions, if I zoom in, fasten the counterweight with the two screws. So of course that is not helpful at all. It just says the two screws. There is a separate hardware bag that comes with a separate instruction sheet and gives you the sizes. So I'm assuming these are kind of a one-to-one, because it doesn't tell you. There we go. So that, because you see there's lots of other lengths and screws with wider heads and things in this bag. So I'm going to grab the two screws that match this size, and then as shown in the instructions here, they are going to screw into these two holes. So I think hopefully everybody watching this knows how to use a screwdriver. I don't necessarily need to film myself doing that part. So I'm going to put my camera down and get those screws in. Actually, before I do that, just a quick note to be careful because there are a lot of screws that are very close in length. So here, if you're just grabbing whatever at first looks like it matches this picture out of the bag, there are actually 3 different sizes that are very close. So I believe it is the middle one I have here. That is the same size as the printout there, so I'm going to find the second matching one of those. I almost grabbed 2 that were different lengths initially. So now I believe I have 2 that are the same size, and I'm going to go screw them in. Alright, so there, those 2 screws are in. I should actually back up and note that the instructions start with installing the battery, but my battery came installed. So there is a screw there and a screw in here on the other side that are kind of holding down this big piece that is holding the battery down. So I don't know if sometimes it comes without the battery installed, but I skipped that step. We are now going to go to the next page. Onto, and that was steps 1 and 2, fastening the screws. Step 3, position the hood by inserting the hinge into the hinge receiver slots of the chassis. Then secure the hinge with a screw, close the hood, and use a coin to lock the safety catch. So, I've got the hood. This comes with coated in plastic. It looks like this might be the safety catch they're referring to. So it looks like I'm going to need to, I'm not going to make you guys listen to the plastic peeling noise. I'm going to put the phone down for a second and set the tripod up before putting the hood on. Okay, got my tripod set up so I can do this with 2 hands. So I am going to insert the hinge into the hinge receiver slots. So hinge is this thing here on the bottom of the hood, or the front of the hood. Hinge receiver slots are here. So it looks like that. I'm just going to slide into there. Okay, and let me grab the phone because I don't know if you can see that. So the hinge slid into the hinge receiver slots there. I can't tell. There we go. Now it's in all the way. And then it says to secure that with a screw. So I got step 2, or second page of this hardware sheet, or graphic in this hardware sheet showing this screw, which again has a wire head. It says to secure that with a screw. Not entirely clear where that screw is supposed to go. Looks like I might have pushed this in a little too far because there's a hole right there. But it looks like I pushed the hinge in too far, and it is now past that hole, sort of. Or no, that hole is actually part of the hinge. Okay, so not immediately obvious based on the picture where this screw is supposed to go. Let's see if we can check that picture again. Not a great picture. And kind of hard to get in there, so I'm gonna, let's see. Looks like there's a hole right there that everything should line up. So that's gonna be hard to film. I'm gonna put the camera down and see if I can get the screw all the way through there. Okay, I was missing something. This thing slides back and forth, so when it's like this, then there's clearly a place to put the screw. I was looking at it like when it was like this, where that hole is blocked by this metal pin. So, extend that, and this may be a little hard to do with one hand, but slide this thing in here. The problem is when you slide it in there, it gets pushed so the hole is no longer aligned again. There we go, so we're going to slide that back. Now the whole thing needs to go in further. Oh, this is a pain. Okay, let's get the phone back in the tripod. See if I can get this. Okay. Does that want to slide in there? No. Huh. Okay, that's... Literally, you can just fast forward or skip ahead from this part if you don't want to watch me struggling with it, but I'm trying to get this thing in there. There we go. Okay, so it has to be really flat and parallel. This has to be very flat and parallel with the surface. I think I had it at a slight angle and it didn't want to go in. Now, hopefully you can see all the way down through there. You can see the light poking through. I'm wiggling my finger behind it now. I have the hole aligned to put that screw in. So, and here's the screw, one of the ones with the wire head. Not going to film myself tightening the screw, but that's where it goes. All right, next up we got close the hood and use a coin to close the safety latch. Not really sure why it says to use a coin to do that when it looks like you can just use your fingers. So that clearly didn't latch right away. What do we got there? Okay, so it looks like to go in, that initially must be pointed back. As you can see, that slot there has the key pointed back. And it's going to be hard to film again. On tripod. Okay. Close. That is not latching. That is way... Okay, so this is where this thing sliding comes in. Maybe. Does that want to slide back more? There we go. That slid back. Now, I kind of got to stretch this a little bit. Okay. I don't have a coin handy, but I have a big flathead screwdriver, although I can. I guess that's actually kind of hard to turn with my hands. There we go. Okay, so now the hood is on tight. And we have 4 headlights to put in. It says press the 2 center headlight lenses into place, paying attention to the 3 corresponding tabs. And then install the 2 remaining side headlights, again paying attention to the corresponding tabs. Attention, the center headlights and side headlights are not identical. Check that the orientation and shape match before checking them into place. So in this kind of extra parts and accessories bag, there were 4 of these things. And looking very closely, I guess it does look like they're not identical. They look really close, I think. Now I have them mixed up, so I'm going to have to see which ones match here. And paying attention to, again, the location of the 3 corresponding tabs. So there's 2 tabs on each side and then on the top for this one. And then the other one actually looks like it has 4 tabs. Maybe that's the easiest way to tell them apart. See, this guy here only has 3 tabs on the back, whereas this one has 4 kind of in funkier orientations. So let's go to the tripod. Okay, so for the one with 3 tabs, I'm going to get those lined up. Let's see, hopefully if I can snap this in there gently without breaking anything. Okay, that was one of the middle ones. Didn't really hear a click yet, so I don't think that's in there all the way. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you'll get a nice loud click when it's actually in the right place. Here is the other one with 3 tabs. That's going to go here. Clicked in a little easier, and then one with 4 tabs. Let's see, I think that. So they're mirror images, but they will only snap in on one side. Try to do this without breaking it. There we go. Yeah, you should get a nice loud click once it's in there. And there we go. Okay, all 4 headlights are in. All right, next up we have a step for press the side inserts onto the chassis. So that is these 2 things that came in that spare parts bag. And I don't know how well you can see here, but this has tabs on it that are going to line up with these slots. So that will just snap in there. It's one of the easier steps. Maybe this back part also has a tab that didn't really want to snap in yet. Come on. Okay, that one doesn't want to snap. If I bend it first. This looks like it's mostly a cosmetic part and not super important, so maybe not the end of the world if that doesn't snap in right there. There we go. Okay, then I'm not going to film it, but I'm going to go do the same thing on the other side with the other one. Okay, so I lied. I said I wasn't going to film this part, but this is infuriating. This top tab snaps in really easy, and there's one in the front, but I cannot get this one in the back to snap in. Just pressing in, this kind of whole wall is flexible, so it just moves the whole black part with it, and trying to like bend this and finagle it in there at an angle isn't working either, so I don't know how exactly I got the other side in, but I guess I'm just going to keep pressing on this one and hoping I don't break anything. Again, that's mainly a cosmetic part, so maybe I will come back to it later because right now it's just pissing me off. But yeah, that step is a pain. All right, next up we have unscrew the knobs situated under the seat. Place the seat in line with the holes of the seat support. The seat is adjustable into 2 positions. Once the seat is in place, screw the 2 locking knobs back on. So, here's the seat. There are 2 threaded rods sticking out of the bottom that had these 2 plastic knobs on them. I've got a tripod here. This is the seat support, which again has 4 holes in 2 pairs, either here or here, depending on the height of your kid. Based on the instructions, I think this is the front, so I'm going to go with a forward set of those 2 holes. So slide that on like that, and then, again, sorry, going with a forward set because my son just turned 4, so I think he's going to be on the shorter end of the age range for this, but I could be wrong. If not, hopefully this isn't too much of a pain to get. Now, back off and move later. The threads, there's no metal insert or anything. This is just plastic going onto there, so be careful not to strip the threads because they don't really want to go back on straight. I'm going to tighten that down and then figure out what to do with the seat. Okay, next up we have steps 11 and 12. Insert the front tabs of the seat support into the slots of the chassis and reposition the seat support onto the tractor chassis and secure with 2 screws. So those 2 slots are right here. And we got these 2 prongs or tabs sticking out of the front of the seat support. So they are going to slide in there. And the seat kind of clicks down into place. And the lighting is not as good back here. I apologize, but there are, looks like 2... Actually, those are not screw holes. Okay, so I need a minute to actually locate the screw holes, but I believe there are 2 screws that are going to then hold the entire seat down. So if you do want to adjust the position and move this back later, you're going to need to undo those screws. And if I look at the picture for step 12, it looks like those screws are actually accessed from the bottom, so that makes sense here. Turn this whole thing around so we can get... There we go, better light. You can see how these are kind of sticking up here, so this is not a hole where you put the screws in from the top. I'm going to have to flip the whole thing over and put those screws in from the bottom. And again, you can see that step is shown here, so I'm going to find the right size screw. Looks like these guys. And go ahead and do that. Okay, so I flipped the whole thing upside down, and if you look closely just behind the rear axle here, you got these 2 screw holes right there that are going to line up with the seat. So again, I'm not going to film myself using a screwdriver, but here are the screws, going to tighten both of those down. All right, the next step had me confused because the English is not great. It says, put the stickers to the back lights position as shown in the figure. Then 14, attach the lenses from bottom to top. So that had me looking in this accessory bag for stickers, but there aren't any stickers. Whereas there's these things which look like they should be the back lights, and then that is consistent with what's shown. Here it says chrome decal, which doesn't really make sense either, so who knows what the translation was, but I'm 99% sure these things are the rear lights, and then it says attach them from bottom to top, meaning I think you're supposed to put the bottom in and then snap the top in. So let's see if that works. And looking at the shape here, it looks like this is how it should go in, so put the... Unless I have that upside down. Bottom one in first. Nope, never mind, I'm wrong. So you can see how that tab is too wide for that slot. So I have this upside down. Just go like this. Bottom part hooks in. And then, there we go, top snaps in. Okay, so yeah, definitely not stickers or chrome decals, but there's these orange plastic rear lights. Hook the bottom in first, and then snap the top in. There you go. Next, we have step 15, install the 2 caps into the C slots into the right and left rear fenders. So I've been bad about showing the pictures, but here we go, pretty clear where these things go. Pretty sure these are the caps. Maybe not immediately clear which one is going to go on which side, because there's 2 of these, and they are mirror images of each other. So, okay, it actually is kind of obvious that this slot is not symmetric. It's kind of slanted forward, so this one slants backward. That's going to go on the other side. This one slants forward. It's going to go on this side. Hopefully this isn't another thing that's kind of a pain to snap in. Let's get the tripod and try this with 2 hands. Okay, so you can see there's the little snappy tab things on this. The edge of this groove is a little rough, so hopefully that doesn't get in the way of the tabs, but that should just press in there, ideally. Please don't give me a hard time. This one doesn't have instructions about pressing down a certain way or side or anything first, so if I go get the front one in there first, no. Just press down on the whole thing. Kind of, maybe, I don't, again, this whole part is pretty flexible, so I don't want to press too hard on that and break something. But it doesn't really, there we go, maybe. Almost, okay, that's not really on there flush. Doesn't look great, it's sticking up. But I'm 99% sure that's where it's supposed to go, and that's the right one. Again, this edge, like the quality of the injection mold or whatever wasn't great there, so pressing down on it with my palm, I didn't get that nice, good, like, yeah, that's really clicked in there sound, so I don't think that one is in all the way. I have 2 of the tabs in, but the third one is not locking into place, so maybe we'll see if I have more luck on the other side. Skip ahead if you don't want to watch me struggle to continue. Oh, there we go. Okay. That made me a little nervous. Felt like it was going to crack the fender here, but you can see how it is now flush around the edge. Going to go do that on the other side. All right, next up we have some steering wheel steps. So a bunch of pieces from the accessory kit. It says press the ring onto the underside of the steering wheel. So this has a bunch of pegs on the ring that are going to align with holes on the underside of the steering wheel. So get those lined up all the way around the perimeter. That looks like it's going to be a bit of a pain. I'm hoping this is... No, so there, that seemed like it went in but that was because I missed all of the holes. So maybe start these one at a time, work your way around the perimeter, make sure they're all lined up, then try to press in. Although it's not really snapping into place, that's kind of more of like a gradual snug fit, but not like an instant snap fit like a lot of the other ones were. So hopefully that doesn't fall out over time, but it feels like it's in there pretty snug right now. And then there is the little cap that is going to snap on right here. So again, ring on the underside, and they call this the cover on the top of the steering wheel. And then the next step, pull this up, we're now on step 17. It says to push the steering wheel shaft from under the tractor up until it emerges from the top of the chassis. So it shows a picture here of somebody kind of reaching under and pushing the shaft so it emerges up from the top. Let me zoom out. So just kind of reaching up under here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you can feel that. And push that right up there. And if you push it hard enough, it stays in place. And we are ready for the next page in the instructions. Okay, I'm going to try and set this shut up so I'm not blocking it with my body and my head when I go to do it. So you got to hold the shaft up. And then we are now going to, I'm on steps 18 and 19 here. Secure the steering wheel with the bolt and nut provided, taking care to insert the bolt into the round hole and the nut into the hexagonal one. So, if we look at the steering wheel here, you've got a round hole. We get the light to reflect on that so you can see it better on one side, so the bolt's going to go in there. And you got the hexagonal hole on the other side that is going to hold the nut. Those come from, again, your separate hardware bag where I lined up the bolt and the nut to find the appropriate size. Be careful because there are a couple other bolts slightly shorter than this one. So, roll this up so it doesn't keep falling. Slide the steering wheel over the steering wheel shaft. I'm going to get all of the holes in line. I'm getting some resistance pressing that on there, so you have to, there we go, that's snapped on. You probably can't see it on the camera, but I can look through there and see that those holes are aligned, so I'm going to get this bolt through there. Hopefully, now they're not, I can just see light through the other side, so I know the holes are sort of aligned. And try and jiggle or grab my screwdriver, see if I can thread that through there. And then I have that nut that is just gonna, you don't need to use a wrench because it has a recessed hexagonal hole on the other side. That is gonna hold the nut in place. So there we go. I'm getting some, the threads are starting to pull that through. I'm gonna take my nut, put it into the hexagonal hole on the other side. Hold that in with my fingertip as I tighten this. I can zoom in so you can see this a little better. Get to refocus maybe. Okay. Yeah, what you can't see on the other side here is that the nut is in that hexagonal hole, and I'm just holding it in with my fingers so it doesn't get pushed out as the bolt starts to come through. And maybe I will wind up. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that actually went through a lot faster when I just pushed it instead of twisting the whole way. Don't want to over tighten because I don't want to, again, that nut on the other side is just in a recessed plastic hole. It's no metal, so I don't want to twist too hard and just strip that. But that is nice and hand tight. And if I zoom back out, now my steering wheel should be working. There we go. All right, next up we have step 20. Press the hubcaps onto the wheels. The larger ones go on the front wheels. The smaller ones go on the rear wheels. So again, these were in the accessory bag. You have 2 pairs of hubcaps. The bigger ones have 3 tabs on them. Those are going to snap over the front wheels to cover the bolts there. And these smaller ones also have actually only 2 tabs. Sorry, so that is going to snap onto the rear wheel to cover the bolt. I'm not going to film it, but I'm going to go do that on the other side. All right, here's another step that had me confused. Step 21, attach the vent to the left side of the chassis. The angle at which that part is shown in this picture is really not clear. It took me a minute to figure out that these things are the vents, and I wasn't sure which one goes on the left until you look ahead to step 22 when you see that the hole is going towards the front of the tractor as opposed to the back. So I am pretty sure, and you can see these ridges point towards the back. So attach that to the left side. It looks like that is going to go here. So put that in there. And then, yep, that snapped right into place. And then step 23, or sorry, step 22, insert the bucket's hook on the vent. The bucket's hook. Not really clear what that piece is, so let's go look for it. Okay, found it. Looks like the bucket's hook is this guy. And then step 22, insert the bucket's hook on the vent. Step 23, screw it. Do the same for the other side. So we can see on the hardware sheet here, we got that picture with the long pointy screw. So insert the bucket's hook on the vent. Again, it helps to look ahead to step 23 to try and figure out the orientation of this thing. Looks like this tab is going to hook in down there, and this long cylinder is going to go up there. Let's see if that'll snap into place. No, that doesn't look like it aligns at all. Maybe. Kind of hard to film. Maybe hook it like that first and then do the screw there. Okay, there we go. So yeah, don't put the cylindrical part in first and then try to snap the bottom. Hook the bottom part in first, and then put that in, and then we are going to use one of the long screws to hold that in there. All right, this looks like one of the trickier steps, so we are going to do this carefully. Overturn the bucket as shown. So step 24 shows the bucket with the teeth facing you. Lay the left and right loader arms onto the bucket. Carefully remove the tape from the arms. So these two loader arms were initially, camera's deciding not to focus, wrapped together with saran wrap. I'm assuming that's what that's referring to. But keep them compressed until the bolt has been installed. Not totally sure what that means. And then place the spring wire in the slot adjacent to the bucket bracket and press the arm into the bucket bracket and align the bolt holes. So what does all that mean? It means on the loader arm there is this spring wire poking out and there is a slot there. So this wire is going to align in that slot. And note that on these things, one side has a bunch of screws showing, so that is going to, I assume, point towards the inside, so it's not really visible from the outside of the vehicle. See how the other side is kind of more decorated, so that's probably how you can tell right and left. You can also tell because this slot is not symmetric. So you see how this spring is off to one side, it's going to line up with the slot only over here. If I tried to put it on the wrong side, then that spring is not going to line up with the slot. And you can also see the bolt holes it's referring to. So there's two holes in the bracket there. There are holes in the lift arm. And I believe one of these is probably going to be, actually I was expecting one to be hexagonal, like we had on the steering wheel, but because it's referring to these bolts, but I actually guess not, because then it would come loose gradually. You're going to want the bolt to be able to rotate with it. So I'm going to get that lined up. And I assume the next step is going to be to put a bolt in there, but let's go check. Okay, so ignore what I said about the hexagonal hole. This step we are using washers, which note are not listed on the hardware sheet here. So this step shows the bolt and the nut doesn't show the washer, but the hardware bag does come with 4 washers. So you are going to use a washer on each side, one on the head and one on the nut side, to bolt this on here. So let me switch over to the tripod to do that. Zoom in. So, don't know if it really matters which way the head goes in. I think the diagram shows the head coming in from the outside. And then the nut in the middle. I'm going to get those holes lined up to the best of my ability. Get the holes lined up. Push that through, hopefully. And there's a spring here, so keeping that all aligned is a little difficult. Let's try again. I apologize if my body is blocking the shot here. I'm going to try using the threads to my advantage and threading that in there a bit. There we go. I'm through 3 of the 4 holes. I just need to get through the final hole in the bracket. And I can see that I am almost there. I apologize if my voice is getting muffled as I'm kind of farther away from the camera, but I'm used to that by this point in the video. There we go. That poked through. I'm going to put a washer on this side. And then, interestingly, that seemed to have poked through such that the threads are sticking out too far. I couldn't tighten that all the way if I wanted to, but I am 99% sure I have bolts that are the right length. Double check my hardware sheet over here. Yep. All 4 remaining bolts are the same length, but obviously this is a connection you don't want to tighten too much or else this isn't going to be able to rotate. So I'm just going to tighten that down as far as it can go, but not so snug that this can't rotate because you're going to want the bucket to be able to tilt later. All right, next up we have steps 26 through 29. Install the cross pieces on the front part of the loader arms and secure with the screws. So you've got 2 cross pieces. here, which look like they are going to fit. I'm trying to make sure I don't block the camera with my shoulder here. Fit in between the loader arms like that, and going to be secured with screws, but note that there are two different length screws. If we check the hardware sheet, the cross piece closer to the bucket gets shorter screws, and the cross piece farther from the bucket gets the longer screws. So here are the shorter screws. I'm not going to film myself using the screwdriver, but you can see the screw holes on the sides here. So there's the screw hole for the shorter piece. Sorry, for the shorter screws for the piece closer to the bucket. And then here are the screw holes for the other piece that is farther from the bucket. So 2 cross pieces, 4 screws total. All right, here's where it looks like things start to get annoying. So we're on step 30. Attach dump bucket control lever, which I believe is this thing. Sorry, camera's deciding not to focus. To loader frame. So first we are going to place 7mm retainer. So that is in the hardware bag. It is this thing, kind of a hemisphere on one side, and then this star-shaped pattern on the other side. There are a couple different sizes of these things, so I grabbed a ruler to make sure I'm grabbing the 7mm one. Place that in the red plastic tool. So that is this thing with the star side facing. So this is basically a tool to hold this thing in place so you can hammer it onto one end of a rod. So grab the 4" by 7mm rod, and there are 2 different rods, so if you need to, grab a ruler, make sure you're getting the right one. Going to place that in there and tap the top of the rod with the hammer to hammer that retainer onto the end. So if I go on the tripod here, like that, tap the top with the hammer, and see how it sort of bulged out the end, and now that is on there really good and is not coming off. Now, this next part, I had a hard time figuring out what is being shown in figure 31 here. Insert the 4" rod through the hole in the control lever and through the hole in the loader frame. Hold outside end and firmly press a second 7mm retainer onto the inside end of the rod. So it's kind of hard to tell the orientation from this picture here initially, but the confusing part here is that this picture shows this handle attached to the loader frame, but the instructions have not said to do that step yet. So what we are looking at here, the hole it's referring to in the loader frame is this hole here. That is going to line up with this thing on the lift lever, and you can tell because this is not symmetric. This hole, if we're looking kind of from the driver's seat, is only on the right side. It is not on the left-hand lift arm. You can also tell I had to go over and check a picture on the box where you can see, I don't know how well you can see it here, the lift arm and lift lever are on the right-hand side from the driver's perspective. So again, I was confused about the orientation of figure 31 here. But if we go back in the tripod, what that is showing is that we're taking this rod that we just punched the retainer onto, sticking that through here on one side. Doesn't really want to go through. And then that is going to go through here. And we're going to grab another one of those 7mm retainers, and it says just to press it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that without a hammer, but to press that on the other side here. And again, I am just going to go double check the box and make sure that I have this thing on right, because it looks like in theory could have that upside down, but that wouldn't make sense because I believe this is the handle part that the operator is going to grab. Let's go double check the box, see, because it's really hard to tell from that black and white image. So again, you can see here, the kid is grabbing that part up at the top with the yellow part facing down or back towards the driver, and then that metal rod goes up here to control the bucket. So, I believe, again, I have that in the right orientation here. Metal rod goes down at the bottom, and yellow is going to be facing back towards the driver. I'm going to grab another one of my little 7mm end cap thingies. And again, the instructions just say, hold outside end and firmly press. So let's see. I don't know if firmly pressing is really going to cut it there, but there's really no way. I wonder if I can use this tool again. No, because there's a little recessed hole there that this tool doesn't fit into. Okay, might be time to shut the camera off for a minute and see if I can figure this out, because again, I had to hit that first one with a hammer. So just pressing on that as hard as I can with my hand is not doing anything to really deform this piece. So let me see if I can go figure that out. Okay, so update. I think I hit this too hard. That wasn't really supposed to poke all the way through like that. So I'm going to go get some vice grips, or worst case a Dremel or something, and see if I can get this one off. Because I believe they gave me an extra one of these things. There are 3 in the hardware bag. So I'm going to read ahead in the instructions and make sure I don't need the 3rd one. And then try and get this one off and tap much more gently, because it looks like the rod was actually not poking through here far enough to seat the second one. Probably because it's poking out too far in this direction because I hit it too hard. So I'm going to go try and get this one off. Again, checking the instructions to make sure I don't need the 3rd one, and see if I can kind of get a do-over here, which is, I'm hoping is why they gave me this extra piece. Okay, so I managed to get a second one on there after peeling the first one off without hitting it too hard and deforming it, but for the life of me, cannot just press fit the one on the other side. Again, I'm pressing this as hard as I can. Maybe that's on there, but I don't really trust it, and I don't want to go banging at this with a hammer because it's kind of recessed in there and I'm going to break the plastic. So nope, that was not actually on there. So you can see how that is sticking out enough that in theory these teeth should be able to bite on there. I don't know if I'm going to get, I have like a nail punch or something, you know, a little block, something, or a bolt or anything that's narrow enough to kind of aim at this and hit it with a hammer without hitting the nearby plastic. So let's try that. Okay, so this is all kind of precarious. I got one end of that rod balanced on that red thing. I got the cap I'm trying to get on here. I'm going to hit it with just a random bolt that I just grabbed. And try and... no, my hammer's too big. I'm going to hit it sideways with the hammer. I think that did it. See if now I should be able to... There we go. See if I can zoom out so you can see that better. So now I have my bucket lifting action. And hopefully, if I pull sideways on this, it doesn't feel like those are going to pop off. Again, I don't really like those things because it's easy to either hit them too hard and go way too far, or kind of really hard to press on with your hand and not get it on hard enough. But I guess they have the reasons for doing that as opposed to a bolt and washers and a nut like they do for another movable connection. So again, hopefully that doesn't pop off, but I think that'll be something to watch out for over the long term as you have a toddler abusing this device. Okay, that was a pain. Let's move on to step 34, where it looks like we're going to be actually attaching this handle that was shown as already attached in some previous images, even though we didn't actually get to the step to put that on yet. So, step 34. Place the U-shaped handle onto the loader frame arms as shown in the figure. The picture in box A shows the correct position of the lower tab, which should be inserted into the slot of the loader arm. The picture in box B shows the incorrect position. So we've got, here's our U-shaped handle. Zoom out. It looks like, I'm going to have to go to the tripod, this is going to slide in here around these gray things somewhere, and then they're referring to these tabs should actually go all the way into that slot and not be sticking out. So let's go on the tripod. Oops. Okay. Make sure you get this on camera. So if you look closely at this thing, these parts actually separate, so I think they're going to go, it's not entirely clear if they go all outside. Not sure how well this is going to show on the camera, but maybe I'll turn it like this. It's kind of weird how these parts are split, and my initial thought was maybe that means that they split around the frame here, so like part of that tab goes inside and part of it goes outside, but it looks like the dimensions are such that the whole thing just goes on the outside. So I'm going to double check the picture. Let me see here, even if I zoom in, can't really tell. Yeah, I guess in the picture it looks like everything's going on the outside. So let's try that. Zoom back out. Everything on the outside. No, but then it doesn't want to go on all the way. No, wait, maybe it does. See, that seems backwards. Isn't that backwards? Maybe it's supposed to go this way. No, that doesn't seem right either. Okay, this step also wins this is kind of a pain, and it's hard to see what's going on in the picture award. Okay, so based on the pictures, I'm going to go, this would be a good time to go check the box. I'm looking over at the box. Yeah, it looks like this, the curve is supposed to come back towards the driver. So that whole thing wants to slide on over there. And it says that these tabs should go down inside the slots. So I'm going to put the tabs into the slots first. Maybe. Yeah, it's really not there. No? Okay. I almost have the holes lined up. Eventually I'm going to need, there we go. No, now this one popped out. Huh. Okay. Maybe this one is going to warrant pausing the camera for a minute and seeing if I can actually get that on there, and then I'll show you. It's a little hard to film and keep track of what I'm doing. I'll try and get that on there and then come back and show you where it's actually supposed to go. Alright, 10 minutes of fidgeting with this later, and I am no closer to figuring it out, so maybe somebody in the comments can enlighten me. It just doesn't look like the spacing lines up properly here. Like the gap between these two inner pieces is not wide enough to slide over everything here without causing them, all of those pieces, to flex outward. But there isn't really a gap in between the inner and outer pieces here thick enough to slide them over the wall. I apologize for the lighting not being great here because I'm working in my garage at night, but if I try to slide the whole thing over, and then as I think the directions are telling me, get that tab in there, and the bolt hole doesn't line up, and I don't want to force it because I don't want to break anything. And if I try to put these two inner tabs kind of on the inside, this gets hard to film with one hand, but then it just doesn't really, and it's too narrow, and it doesn't want to go in there. So you can't really tell what's going on from the picture. Again, the detail isn't really good enough to see those two different. See, on the picture, it looks like they're all on the outside, but I really can't tell. So who knows? Gonna keep trying and we'll report back if I can get it to work. Okay, update, I got it. Everything does go on the outside. I am hesitant to take this back off for the sake of illustrating the process, so I apologize that you didn't get to see it, but kind of as indicated in the directions, you gotta start, we can zoom out a bit, with this thing from the back and lower and kind of push down and rotate forward such that these tabs slide into these slots. What I wasn't really showing before, that these gray things in there are on springs, so they can press down. So that whole thing presses down, and then the bolt holes will be aligned, and then the next step says that you are using your 2 remaining bolts and hex nuts. So you see there's the recessed hexagonal hole. Oh, see that one just popped back out, but let's see when I press that in, kind of push forward and rotate down at the same time. Oh, crap, now the whole thing just popped out. So I definitely need to try not doing this and filming at the same time, but if you push that in there, it does fit with both of these tabs on the outside. You do not try to slide them into the middle there like I was doing before. Okay, so I managed to get the screw in on that side. My next gripe is that the bucket lift handle is in the way of tightening the screw on this side. So it seems like the picture, maybe I don't know if they put the steps out of order or what, but there were those earlier pictures that showed this handle attached already. It probably would have made a lot more sense to attach that earlier, because now I can't tighten that screw unless I take this thing off again, but I put this thing on. It's not a bolt that I can undo. It's this cap thingy that got kind of hammered on. So thankfully I have a really short stubby screwdriver that I'll probably be able to get in there, or like worst case use some needle nose pliers or something. But this part is definitely the biggest pain in the butt. I've already been doing this for like 2 hours, so my son is on the verge of just getting a tractor with no loader in the morning, and Daddy's going to tell him Daddy needed a little more time to assemble the loader. But at this point, I think I'm going to power through. But yeah, I guess maybe when I edit the video, I'll put in a warning to skip ahead and attach the handle first or something, because this is just obnoxious. Even if you move this handle, I don't think you can really get it completely out of the way of tightening that screw. Okay, so I stand corrected. If you disconnect the lift link, lift arm, whatever that thing is called, and rotate this, then you can get access to that screw, but that was still stupid. So now I'm going to go back and reconnect that, and then I believe I am ready to go attach this thing to the tractor. Okay, we are ready to put this thing, the loader frame, which has these gray clips that you can see here, onto these things, which we attached earlier. So looking at the written steps, that is steps 37 and 38. Place the loader onto the tractor and attach the rear part of the loader as shown in the figures. So we look at figure 37 here. We're kind of going to lower the whole thing down over the hood. And then figure 38, we see those clips are going to clip on to, totally forget what these are called, little side clippy things. So let's go over here on the tripod. Try and get a good, well, it's camera zoom, wide angle shot of this. I'll take the whole thing, lower it down onto the top, and hope those just clip into place. Not really hearing a snap. I'm not sure how hard I'm supposed to push down, or if I'm supposed to rotate, or if it just sits there, or what. Those look. Okay, yeah, those should be rotating back, so I think I need to push down a little bit harder. There we go, clicked on one side. Click in on the left side, did not click in on the right side yet. So let's push down harder there. There we go. Okay, clipped in on both sides. Okay, next we have our favorite friend, the retainer tool, little retainer thingy, and the larger metal rod. I'm not going to film it since I showed this already, but again, you place the retainer with the star pattern facing up, and I'm going to gently tap the rod this time so I don't bust it all the way through the retainer. So I may have skipped reading a couple steps there. Apologize if I haven't been reading every single step in the book, but now I'm on step 40. Line up the holes in the loader frame with the holes in the hood and insert the steel rod. So I believe if I look at the picture here, that's step 40. It's showing the lower hole in the loader frame lining up with the hole in the hood. So that is this hole here. And if I lift that up, you see there is a hole in the hood that looks like it should line up. What's interesting is I can't see light coming through there, and I would think if I'm going to stick that rod the whole way through, I would be able to see light coming through and kind of poking through the hood. It looks like, I don't think I'll be able to get my camera to focus or for you to see this, but it looks like that hole is blocked by the battery. So I am going to put the camera down and try to figure that out because, again, ideally, I should be able to poke this guy through to the other side and support the whole lift assembly, but I can't do that if the battery's in the way. So let's find out. Okay, so as expected, this is kind of annoying. It looks like, as far as I can tell from the directions, I'm supposed to be able to just poke this through there, and it's going to come out. Oh, wait, now it's going. Okay, maybe. I'm going to try and get it aimed. Come out the other side. Let's just open the hood just to see what's going on in there, just in case. Okay, so it is just kind of a... Can't see now that the hood is up. It looks like it's just a real tight fit right through there, and you can see there's kind of some scratches, if I can get my camera to focus, where maybe things weren't lined up. No, the camera doesn't want to focus, but come on. Things weren't lined up perfectly. It looks like the rod should go right through there. So not quite sure why I couldn't see any light poking through the hole on the other side, but if I put that back down, I'm going to go retighten the hood, and then should be able to get through. I had it almost through, so I'm just going to have to wiggle it a little bit. Okay, I may run out of patience for filming this part, but you got to make sure you have the hood down all the way, and that, because if it's not, then your holes aren't going to line up. But hopefully, once you do this part, you never have to do it again, because then there's a different mechanism for popping the hood. There we go. Almost all the way through. You guys can't see what I'm doing on the other side here, but maybe I'll move over and zoom in. I am trying, oh, of course, now the lift rod is blocking the view. Trying, I'll get a flashlight and see if I even have that. Lined up at all? Okay, there we go. Get that through. Come on. There we go. It is not long enough? What the hell? I don't want to squeeze it too much, but it needs to poke through far enough for me to get the last one. Where the hell am I? There we go. Last one of these things on there. And as of right now, it is definitely not sticking out. Sorry, Zoom is freaking out. Nope, that's the one I want. It's not sticking out far enough. There it is. As far as I can tell, I don't know if I just need to squeeze the whole thing or what, but that rod is supposed to be long enough to go the whole way through and get a cap on the other end. Again, this time I did not hammer it on too far or anything, so I don't think that's the issue. I'm going to put the camera down and see if I can squeeze it and get the extra length or something that I need. So I found the source of my problem by popping the hood, and again, this may be related to something I think I mentioned way back at the beginning of the video with the battery being pre-installed. So this green tab here is outside of this black thing that is holding the battery down, and it looks like I can simply lift that up and get the green tab inside it, do that on both sides. And that, as you may have noticed, just kind of squeezed the frame together just a little bit more, whereas previously it had been pressing it out. And my hope is that if I now, tripod time, come back and close everything up, that just extra little smidge of compression is going to be enough to allow me to now get the stupid end cap on that rod. So, hood back on, latching this into place here, maybe. Okay, now, aha, there we go. I don't know if you could see that. Now I actually have that sticking out enough that I can get the end cap on, whereas before I felt like I had to squeeze it. So, kind of annoying, again, because the instructions, the very first step was telling you how to install the battery. Mine came installed, but the thing that was holding it in was causing too much outward spacing on the hood. The hood also now snaps down much nicer earlier. I was going to complain earlier about how the hood didn't really align with the frame when I closed it. I guess when I edit the video, I'll go back and put in a note about how that's a problem. But now, probably the same problem as last time. I doubt the instructions say to just kind of press another one of these guys on. I doubt I am going to be able to do that without hammering it. And I am going to need to hammer very carefully because I don't want to break the frame. So let's see if I can just press on this hard enough. No, that didn't work at all. Okay, so I'm going to try and line that up. Maybe hold one in place on this side and gently hammer with a block of wood or something on the other side because I don't want to break. Did that work? Still no. Okay, turn the camera off and see if I can get that to happen. Okay, there we go. Finally, 3 hours later, and it took me a little longer since I was filming and narrating everything, but you probably want to budget at least an hour, if not 2, if putting one of these together yourself, so you're not up until after midnight, like me, doing it the night before your kid's birthday. Or again, worst case, the whole lift assembly was kind of a pain, so you could put the main part together and they can drive it around, and you could add the lift assembly later. The operation here, you've got a gas pedal. It's got 2 speeds. It comes locked, so they can only go in the lower speed. You can take that off if you want them to be able to go faster. And then you've got this handle to tip the bucket, this one to lower the bucket, kind of lift forward. That pulls off the latch here. And again, you can also scoop, pull back to latch it into place. I don't know how hard that's going to be for a toddler to operate. And even already it's a little hard to get it to latch back into position, so we'll have to see how that goes for a 4-year-old driving it. And if you want to recharge the battery, pop that forward, undo this screw, pop the hood, and that gives you access to charge the battery. But it also looks like, I didn't read this far ahead in the manual, I believe you can plug this in, and then, let's see, is there a, might be access to hit a charging port or something on the bottom so you can charge the battery without having to pop the hood. But I will check that. I will leave reading that part of the instructions up to you. I think I have covered enough here. If you have comments, questions, suggestions based on doing this yourself, please go ahead and leave a comment below this video to help out other people doing this in the future. If I get helpful comments, I can update the video description or pin useful comments or edit my own pin comment or whatever. And if you have made it this far, thank you for watching.